In this video we're going to look at formatting the charts that we've created. We're formatting them for titles, legends and axis titles. We also sometimes need to add a value to our charts and change the range of our y-axis or primary vertical axis. We can see in this example that nothing exists below 50 and nothing quite reaches 350, so we could make changes to those numbers. In order to format our chart, we need to go to the Layout ribbon, and for most of these changes we go to the Labels group. Each of these options is relatively self-explanatory. Chart title deals with the title of the chart itself. Axis titles apply a title to each of the axes. Legend displays what colours represent or what the objects represent, and data labels allow us to indicate what values actually are for each of these data points. Axes, in the axes group, is where we change the y-axis. If we have a look at chart titles first, you may find that depending on your highlight or your selection before you create your chart, a title has already been created. If this is the case, all we need to do is click once to highlight the title, and it displays the text box, and then we can double click or triple click to highlight all of the text and overwrite it. We don't press enter to confirm our entry because that would just drop down to the next line in the text box. All we have to do is click away from that text box. If you find that no title has been inserted into the graph automatically, we go to chart title and we always select above chart title. This will drop in a text box with the words chart title. A triple click will highlight everything, and that's 3 quick taps of the left mouse button, and then we just type in what we need. So that's applying a chart title. For an axis title, if we look at the x-axis first, click on the axis titles and then its primary horizontal axis title for the x-axis, and we've either got none or title below axis. Click on that button and it will drop a text box and the text axis title, and then again it's a triple click to highlight everything and then typing in the data that's needed. And again, a x-axis or primary horizontal axis title is always going to be title below axis. For a y-axis or primary vertical axis, we have a number of different options. We have rotated title, vertical title or horizontal title, and it's best to go with rotated title. Again, simply clicking on that option will drop a text box and the text axis title. Again, triple clicking over that text will highlight it all, and then we can type in the text that we need. So like I say, we go axis title, primary vertical axis title, rotated title, triple click over the text that's already entered and then type in what we need. So that's titling the chart itself to tell what the chart is representing, and titling the X and Y axes to make sure that they make sense. If we have a look at legends now, we can see that we've got a legend here automatically because it was part of our selection. If no legend is apparent or we want to turn it off, we can go to the legend button and we have none, show legend at right, at top, at left, at bottom, overlay legend at right and at left. And again, we either want it show legend at right, which it is by default, or do we want it set to none? For this graph, because there are two separate colours, we do need a legend, and as I say, it's normally applied by default. If we go back to the more simple chart, we do not need a legend for this because there's only one variable, so we'd say legend none, and it turns the legend off. So that's making changes to the legend. For data labels, and remember that is displaying the value of each area, if we go to data labels, and again we have a number of options. We've got none, and by default they won't be turned on. Center, inside end, inside base, and outside end, and that tells us where the data labels will appear. For a column chart, it's best to always go with outside end, and the values of each object will appear above the top of the column. Again, if we go for data labels and outside end on this column chart, we have the values. It comes a little bit more tricky with a line chart. If we go with data labels, and here we have center, left, right, above and below, you may sometimes find that numbers get a little bit confusing. With a line chart, we can click on a line to identify it, to highlight it. You see I've got a little bounding box against each of the areas, and we can set the data labels specifically for that area. So for that second line, for the word line, I've set the data labels below, and for internet they're set for above. So you might find that you do need to change how your data labels are displayed. We can also, if they are slightly confusing, click on one of the numbers and that will highlight all of the data labels. Click a second time to highlight just that one label, and then we can move it around by positioning the mouse cursor over the bounding box and dragging the text. So that is applying data labels, and remember, do sometimes be aware that with a line chart you may need to make changes to where the values appear. If we go back to the bills figures, now look at making changes to the y-axis range. As I say, the reasons to do this are because it could be that you're looking to save paper or give more of an impact to a chart. We can see that nothing goes below 50, so perhaps we could have the chart starting at 50 and ending at 300. If we go to axes, and then it is the primary vertical axis, the axis displaying the values, and we don't want to make any of these changes. We need to always show the default axis, and we don't want it in thousands, millions, billions, or in log scale. We click on More Primary Vertical Axis Options, and this brings up the Format Access dialog box. In the axis options, we have the minimum and maximum number. All we have to do is click on the fixed radio button and type in the value that we want it to begin with for the minimum and end with for the maximum. Once you're happy with those changes, and we don't need to make changes to anything else, if we click on close, and that will apply that change to the chart, and you see that it does make a difference in comparing the value of phone against vet, for example. If we go back to learners, we can see that they all begin above 200, so again it would be axis, primary vertical axis, more primary vertical axis options, and then the minimum could start at 200, and we can leave the maximum at 400, and we can see an easier comparison between the different figures. The same is true for a line chart. Again, we can see that nothing starts below 10. So if we say axis, primary vertical axis, more primary vertical axis options, and we can set the minimum to 10 by clicking on the fixed radio button and typing in the number, and then we can set the maximum to 80. Again, once you're happy with your changes, click on close, and it will apply those changes to the chart. So that is making changes to the axes. One final option that you will always be asked for is positioning the chart in a new sheet. For this we have to go back to the design ribbon, and it is the last option on the right. We have move chart. If we click on that button, we have move chart dialog box. The radio button object in and the spreadsheet will always be selected. If we click on the new sheet, and we don't need to worry about renaming it, if we just click OK, then the graph comes in the new sheet. So it's a separate area. Do be aware that any changes you've made to your values, if you're asked to display them, may need to be changed again as we've given the chart area much more space. So always keep in mind how your values are displayed. Again, if we have a look at courses, if I put that into a new chart, so it's just clicking on move chart and then new sheet, and that looks alright. And then if we go to bills, move chart and new sheet, and there we have our charts. So that's formatting a chart in Excel.